Welcome to Incorporating Superpowers. My name is Justin Recla, and I'm your host for this show today. And I tell you what, you guys are in for a treat because we're talking to Ron Kardashian. I said that right, Ron Kardashian, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now, real quick, I haven't determined whether or not he's actually related to the Kardashians, but that might come up in this conversation. Okay. But I'm super excited to him because to talk to Ron today because we're going to be talking about cognitive behavior. This is something that is near and dear to my heart with the clients that we work with. Ron works with executives. He is the executive coach for executives. He is literally top notch in his game. And I'm super excited to have him on. He's got a very unique story. Just in the brief time that we connected right before the show, I can automatically tell that he's the real deal. He connects in transparency, and we about ended up down a rabbit hole before the show. I was like, stop and save some of that before the show. So Ron, thank you so much for being on the show today. I appreciate your time, and it looks like you're enjoying the day outside as well.
Yep.
Hit us up. Who are you? What do you do? What's the magic you bring to this world?
Oh boy, that's the $1 billion question. My wife keeps asking me, "Who really are you?" No, I'm just kidding. Boy, I think the process of life development that I always am sharing with my family. I always say that your wife is your resume for those who are great leaders, and I'm constantly balancing myself to, be the man that I am in public and private. And quite frankly, that's been my biggest struggle, but my greatest benefit, right? Being raised in a home where the father was there for a short season and then bam, gone, left mama and the whole thing. The discovery of adulthood and manhood is a process that we're all on. And so I jokingly say she's my resume. She'll tell you the truth. I'm still a big work in progress, but for the most part, the last 20 years, I've led an unbelievable career, hitting 4 continents and doing what I love, and that's helping people better their lives, become more fiscally responsible, be more behaviorally responsible, and at the end of the day, reducing depression and anxiety, which were ailments that I was constantly plagued with. Now, I often say, as we talked before the show, that mine was self-induced, and oftentimes, I think what's made me a very well-rounded coach is that I've gone through a lot of the issues that many people deal with day to day. I mean, I've abused over-the-counter prescription drugs. I've been a drug user. I've taken alcohol way too far. I've used cocaine. I'm not afraid to say it. I've smoked marijuana and smoked weed. And all of that came to a halt at 22 by suffering three, Justin, near-death experiences.
Wow.
Where, when you hit that, when you play that hard, which I'm learning the type A individuals I coach and these elite level thinkers, high performance athletes, even celebrities, people that run really hard. You're doing 7, 8, even 9 or 10 figures a year, like some of the people I'm coaching, like our enterprises. You have really got to learn how to hit the pause button on the remote. It's not a stop, but most of the time, right?
It is pause. It
is
pause.
It really is, man.
Folks, listen to what he's just said here. He set the foundation for who he is, and in that transparency, puts all of his shit on the table, owns it. And if your coach isn't doing that for you, it's time to get a new coach.
Yeah,
Ron, this is the real deal. This is where the rubber meets the road, right?
Yeah.
Because I think there's this misconception in the industry that your coach is perfect, that your coach is infallible, and your coach is all this kind of stuff, and people are looking for that solution. But the title of the show is Cognitive Behaviors. So you automatically already knew what your journey was and what it served for you and how it helps others. Where does that cognitive behavior, that the stuff that people have got in their past, what they're thinking and how they're doing it, how does that have an impact in their day-to-day life?
Over those last 20 years in career development, I found myself standing on the sidelines of UOP, University of Pacific, training some of the San Francisco 49ers. And from there, I moved into the Golden State Warriors, had an athlete there that I trained. And I started picking up on these performance behavioral assets that pro athletes had. And having an undergrad in personal training and learning the study of kinesiology, which is basically human movement, I realized that a lot of good these guys were doing physically, if they did not have the behaviors to offset some of these issues that they were working through, day-to-day issues of spending, scaling new companies, running a family, having elderly parents, transitioning them into a home, private schools. And you'd think that along with more independent wealth would come more ease. But what I found was there's actually a lot more trouble. As the ancient proverb says, right? With great wealth comes great suffering. And there's a lot of truth to this, right?
More money, more problems, right?
More money, more problems, brother. And so it was really cute how I began to consult these guys physically, but they really needed help mentally, as I did. And so over the years, and I'm working on a PhD now in cognitive psychology, but my emphasis is human performance. So that's basically, how do we perform as human beings? And cognitive behaviors, which is a fancy way of saying brain behaviors, are the engine, if you will, that runs the life. It runs your money, it runs your spending, it runs your promotion or your confidence. And, you know, I wrote a whole book about it called 30-Second Solution. And cute little story. I went to this gentleman, Dr. Daniel Amen, who I love. I don't see him as far enough as I should, but he wrote, 100 bestsellers. And I said, Doc, look, if you don't tell me that the brain can change, because I'm in this process, and even at the time, I still was dealing with addictive behavioral disorder. I had some issues that I was working out with my wife, anger issues, where she was like, what's wrong with you? Why do you feel like you need to vent like this? And I would blame it on my Italian heritage. I'd say, I'm Italian, I'm Armenian Italian. So, and, Tia is so precious. She would say, look, honey, she's very sweet. She goes, that ain't going to cut it. So when I met with this doctor, I told him that, and he laughed and he said, the law of neuroplasticity, which a lot of us are well-versed in now, this was just coming out then, was that the brain can change. It's plastic. Well, the old Italian, excuse, if you will, man, that was just lip service to validate a behavioral issue that Coach Ron was not ready to graduate to, and I almost lost my marriage because of it. Come to find out, most of the executives that I'm coaching right now are in the same predicament. They can run $100 million a year. They've got 70 million in property assets, but they have no stability at home, which inadvertently is affecting the brain and changing the generation. I'm a legacy guy, Justin. So I'm not interested in just the short-term profit. I'm interested in the long-term effects on how my children now are going to change this game, or else I'm no different than my daddy was.
Well, and that's the things, right, is that the change has to start with us. And I love the fact that you use the legacy aspect. I mean, I get that. I've got a 9-year-old who has been doing business since she was 2. And she calls me on my shit all the time.
It's a good barometer.
And it's important that we instill that, we change the behaviors of, especially as men, right? Of what it means to be a father, and how the shit that we pass down to our kids. It's our responsibility to change that in the way it goes.
Well, I mean, if you look at, you're so right. I mean, if you look at Steve Jobs's the memoir that his daughter just wrote. Now, I'm here in the Silicon Valley. I mean, we're in the mecca of it. Okay, and to hear her discuss how her father was never present changes the perspective on the optimization of man, not the perfection of man. And none of us are ever going to be perfect, but we do have a responsibility to bring mastery into certain segments in our life. And I've become a student first. And that's what's accelerating my clients, because we're kind of on this trajectory together. You know what I mean? And I found that this ancient proverb, I use it all the time in the biggest boardrooms: humility precedes honor, but pride comes before a fall. And Justin, hands down, the more arrogant I became, the lower I became. Fiscally, we can go up because arrogance can be countered with aggression and perseverance, right? But I realized the higher I went, the more empty I got. And most of the guys and ladies that I coach, they have found they've hit a certain level of economical success, but on the inside, they're still seeking out mediums. They're still seeking out psychologists or fortune tellers. Because why? Because the DNA inside of us is craving something that we can't buy.
Oh, this is great. I want to take a quick pause right here because this is we really just cracked open the rabbit hole here, folks. We're going to dive down to it after the break. Ron, before we go on break, where can people go find more information about you?
RonKardashian.com all day long, spelled as is.
Awesome. Take a look at the website. We're going to go on break right after this word from our sponsor, Crypto Wealth Coach.
Are you an entrepreneur who speaks at conferences? Have you attended a conference and seen someone on stage you know is guilty of bad business practices? If you want to stand out from the crowd and give your prospective clients peace of mind, then make sure your business is in the Clear Directory. All of our members operate in transparency and are screened annually for frauds and scams. Stand out from the crowd and get in the Clear Directory. Visit clearbusinessdirectory.com/join to sign up today.
All right. Welcome back to the show. I am your host, Justin Recla. This is Incorporating Superpowers. We are talking to Coach Ron Kardashian. He is literally just cracked open the rabbit hole right before the break. If you weren't listening, we're talking about cognitive behaviors. We're talking about right before the break. We're talking about how there's a certain amount of fiscal success, financial success that you can get, but a lot of people that Ron's seen in the industry get so high, but they're still empty on that inside. They don't have those foundational pieces, or the language I would use would be they're still wounded and they haven't set the pillars that make them who they are. Ron, this is, first and foremost, I love the fact that you highlight that because money doesn't solve those problems and it never will. It's impossible to. So what are some of the things that you are seeing that you can share with the audience that they can do right now? Like, what should they be examining in of themselves to better themselves?
That's a great question. There's several things that you can do. I'm constantly advising leaders, high achievers, people hungry for the next level, that you've always got to be oscillating three facets in your life constantly. I have, number one is not just who's feeding on you, but who are you feeding on? Not just who's feeding on you. I mean, we're constantly, high achievers are constantly being pulled at. I know after I hit my first seven figures, you get people that come out of the woodwork trying to say, can you help me with this and help me with that? And while we do have a big philanthropic arm, we have to make sure not to diversify ourselves too far or extend ourselves too much. Now, on the flip side of this, as you alluded to, I often say money just makes you comfortable while you're miserable. Money just makes you comfortable while you're miserable, because if you haven't dealt with some of those things, hence people who are pouring into you, then you're really off kilter and out of what we call the work-life balance scenario, right? So you want to have symmetry in there. At one point in my career, I was able to coach a brain surgeon. Now, this guy was unbelievable. And when he came to me, I asked him the first question: why do you need a success coach or executive coach? He said, there's one person I cannot do brain surgery on. He said, myself. And it changed my whole outcome in terms of my passion to help more people. Because, the term life coach, and I've been a life coach since 1994. So I know I'm not new to the industry, but it really got soured down because people they don't have number two, which is, do you have some type of tools that are constantly encouraging you, whether it's new books, audios, CDs, podcasts like we're doing here, and are you downloading new updates? One of the ones we're working on now, and you can visit my website, thehire.net, it's HIGHER, is we have developed an entire technology, Justin, that helps you discern and ascertain what are your behavioral strengths and what are your liabilities. And this thing changed my life because I was so pompous and arrogant in the beginning of my career, wrapping a little Kardashian in that, which, by the way, no one knew about the Kardashians 20 years ago. It's like, and people ask me all the time, are you related? Of course. I mean, how many Kardashians are there? But I have stuck true to my passion and my calling without letting all of that get to me. I mean, it was like a road bump because you wake up one day and, you're the subject of 30 million Google hits and you get wrapped up and people come really out of the woodwork. But that didn't deter me from my calling, which is the third key. And that is, once you've got stuff pouring into you, not just pouring out of you, once you've got these tools that say, wow, I'm a lot more gifted than I thought, which is coincidentally, most people, except the top 3% of the most successful in the world, don't have these algorithms. And for a couple, measly dollars, this is the first place we start. And we print out an actual cognitive behavior report, Justin, which now companies like Apple and Google and LinkedIn that are hiring thousands of people every month, we're using this tool to help offset EQ versus IQ, which this emotional piece is this is the groundbreaker right here. You know what I mean? It's the piece that says, right, if you don't know your bandwidth and you don't know how to control your behaviors, watch this. You cannot change. It's because of the wrong belief system. Beliefs create behavioral change.
So I'm gonna call out an elephant in the room here that a lot of people, I don't know if they're familiar or if they're even aware of how big of an aspect this plays on our cognitive behaviors and the way we deal with things emotionally. But I'm going to make it personal. So I know for myself what my beliefs are. And we'll talk about this, but how much weight, how much importance do you see the concept of spirituality, something greater than yourself, coming into play and filling that gap that people don't have? How big of an issue is that?
That's the third key, is that if you don't have some type of grounding, and I use this word interchangeably. Of course, I'm a very outspoken man of faith. I believe in God. I mean, I've had 3 near-death experiences, man. You can't tell me that, I've had my own encounter, which is another story. So when I talk about truth, I always tell people, look me in the eye. I said, because the eyes are a boundary to the soul. If you cannot discern truth in me, you're not going to be able to discern it from someone who doesn't have any truth. So you better start practicing this, right? And it's time with all these videos we have and all of this stuff, you've got to really have a very sharp and acute level of discernment. And that comes through spiritual cognitive frequency. Let me explain this for a minute, because I like to use spirit and frequency, right? This is so powerful, Justin, that the best way to understand this is we all operate at a certain pitch, because just because the gospel is spoken, the Bible says that it is hidden to them who have ears. Now, why would it be hidden to them that have ears? It's because much like a dog could hear a dog whistle and we can't hear it, there are certain messages that come into the atmosphere that we are completely adamant to, because we have not opened up our hearts to dial into a certain pitch. And this is what's changed my marriage. It's gotten me off of drugs. I'm 18 months no wine. I was doing no alcohol, and then I really turned on the heat, and very new to me, because I would be out with a client, they'd break open a 10,000 bottle of wine, and I'm the only one that says this stuff tastes like dirt, because no one wants to tell the truth. And they would laugh at me, and I just figured Ron Kardashian does better without alcohol. That's just for me. Now, if you drink, it's all good. I don't care. I've had plenty. But what I was after was not just stopping the alcohol. I was after who I was becoming when I would drink. And it just wasn't. My wife looked at me and she goes, "You're such an elegant guy." She goes, "You've done so much introspection work. When you drink, you become that old man." And, I kind of wear this new wineskin now, so it was counterproductive. So something to think about. But the spiritual frequency allowed me to hear, much like a dog could hear certain pitches. And this opened up my mind to new information, new data. I found myself on new podcasts. This is the huge one. You ready? This is the law of attraction in its fullness, is that once my frequency or pitch, watch this, Justin, how I begin to articulate change, I begin to attract wealthier and more prominent people into my life. And I thought, my God, no wonder I was attracting all the drug users, and they were cool, and they're still there because I minister to them now. But you can't do it while you're healing. You know what I'm saying? Coach Ron had to go through this process, you know. So now I'm sitting in legislative boardrooms. I mean, I can offer counsel to the new Democratic and Republican Party about be more honest about your dope smoking days. Quit. And see, they're just afraid that the pitch is going to come out and sour the campaign, where actually it's going to make it better. We don't want to get the politic road, but you catch the point.
Folks, if you've been listening to Superpower Experts, Disrupt Reality, Tonia's shows, or any of our other shows, what Ron is talking about here is the concept of the abstract frequency. It's literally everything here at Superpower Experts everything we talk about is all about frequencies and vibrations. And I love this conversation, Ron. I mean, we could talk about this for days on end, and I want to get you on one of our other shows and have a conversation with Tonia on Disrupt Reality, because you're speaking our language, and there's so much more for us to be able to explore here together. This is, folks, check out Ron's site. Go check out his book. We'll have links down below in the description here. Ron, I have a feeling we're gonna have a lot more conversation than just this 20-minute podcast. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yes, sir.
Again, before we sign off, where can people go find out more about you?
Sure, you can email me directly at info@elitelevelcoach. That's elitelevelcoach.com. Visit our website, my company website. We coach Fortune 100, 500 small startups. If you're an entrepreneur, elitelevelcoach.com, and of course, ronkardashian.com. I'm on all the social media portals, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. Not on Instagram anymore, but it's just too much. But we're out there.
Awesome, folks. This is it. Cognitive behaviors, spiritual frequencies. These are the keys to your success. Take a look at Ron's stuff. And until next time, go out there, incorporate your own superpowers, own it, be real, show up authentic, and watch how you change the world. More soon.
Yes, sir. That's true.